Have you ever wondered why saying a simple no can make you feel anxious, guilty, or even afraid of losing someone? That tight feeling in your chest is not random. It is the result of someone teaching you slowly and repeatedly that your boundaries are dangerous. You did not imagine it. You did not become weak overnight. You were trained to doubt yourself. Boundaries are meant to protect your peace. They are meant to guard your time, your energy, and your sense of self. But to a narcissist, boundaries are a threat. They represent a loss of control. So the first weapon they use is guilt. Not loud guilt, not obvious guilt, subtle guilt, quiet guilt. The kind that makes you question your own goodness. The moment you try to protect yourself, they shift their tone. They look hurt, disappointed, confused. They remind you of everything they have done for you. They imply that your need is excessive. They never directly say you are a bad person. They let you arrive at that conclusion yourself. Psychology shows that guilt activates our deepest social wiring. We are conditioned to keep harmony, to avoid rejection, to stay connected. They know this, and they use it. Soon you start explaining yourself more than necessary. You soften your words. You apologize for needing space. You tell yourself it is easier to bend than to deal with the discomfort. The boundary is still there, but it feels heavy, unsafe, like touching a hot stove. This is not love. This is conditioning. What makes this tactic so powerful is that it feels familiar. Many people were taught early that love is earned through self-sacrifice. That being good means being agreeable. A narcissist taps directly into that old programming. They do not have to force you. You hand your power over willingly, believing you are choosing kindness. But kindness that costs you your peace is not kindness. It is self-abandonment. Here is the truth that changes everything. Feeling guilty does not mean you are doing something wrong. It often means you are doing something new. Growth is uncomfortable because it challenges patterns that once kept you safe. When you hold a boundary and guilt rises, that is not evidence of selfishness. It is evidence of change. If you stay with this message until the end, you will gain something most people never do: clarity. You will stop confusing discomfort with danger. You will stop measuring your worth by how little space you take. You will begin to see that boundaries are not walls, they are doors. They show people how to enter your life with respect. The emotional reward waiting for you is freedom. Freedom from over-explaining, freedom from shrinking, freedom from the constant inner battle between what you feel and what you allow. When you understand how guilt is used against you, it loses its power. Awareness breaks the spell. And once the spell is broken, you no longer fear being yourself. You trust yourself again. And that trust changes everything. Once guilt no longer works the way it used to, something colder often takes its place. You feel it when the warmth fades, when messages slow down, when affection turns into distance. It feels sudden, but it is calculated. This is how a narcissist teaches your nervous system a new lesson. They want your boundary to hurt. Silence becomes the punishment. Attention is removed. Love feels conditional, and your body reacts before your mind can make sense of it. Your chest tightens, your thoughts race. You wonder what you did wrong. This reaction is not weakness. It is biology. The human brain experiences social rejection as real pain. Studies show the same neural pathways activate as physical injury. A narcissist understands this instinctively. They use absence as a leash. The message is clear even if it is never spoken. When you protect yourself, you lose connection. When you comply, warmth returns. Over time, your brain starts anticipating loss. You feel anxious before you even speak up. You soften your needs to avoid the cold. You tell yourself you're being flexible, mature, understanding. But what is really happening is conditioning. Your boundary is being associated with fear. This is why so many people say, I just didn't want to upset them. Upset feels dangerous when you've been trained this way. The body remembers what the mind tries to rationalize. You begin to abandon your limits, not because you do not value yourself, but because your nervous system is trying to keep you safe. Here is the shift that restores your power. Discomfort is not danger. Silence is not death. Withdrawal is not proof that you were wrong. It is proof that the boundary touched something real, something they did not want to face. When you can sit with the discomfort without rushing to fix it, the conditioning starts to break. Consistency is what rewires the brain. Not arguing, not explaining, not chasing reassurance, calm repetition, holding the line without drama, letting the silence exist without filling it with self-blame. This feels unbearable at first. Your body will beg you to give in just to make the feeling stop. But if you stay, something extraordinary happens. The anxiety peaks, then fades. Your system learns a new truth. You can survive this. Each time you do not collapse under withdrawal, the fear loses strength. The punishment stops working. The power dynamic shifts. You are no longer responding from panic. You are responding from choice. That is when clarity returns. You stop measuring your worth by someone else's attention. You start feeling grounded even when others are distant. This is not about becoming cold or detached. It is about becoming regulated, secure, anchored in yourself. When your sense of safety comes from within, no one can threaten you with silence again. You stop chasing what disappears. You stop bargaining with your boundaries. You realize that anyone who can only love you when you abandon yourself was never offering real love. Stay with this truth. Let it settle into your body. Because once you understand how punishment was used to control you, you stop mistaking anxiety for intuition. You stop retreating from your own needs. And in that space, a new kind of strength emerges, quiet, steady, unshakable. As your strength stabilizes and your reactions slow, the manipulation changes shape. It becomes quieter, smarter, harder to name. This is where many people lose confidence again, not because they are weak, but because their reality starts getting questioned. Your boundary is no longer punished or ignored. It is rebranded as a problem. You hear it in the words they choose. You are too sensitive. You are overreacting. You are making things difficult. The focus quietly shifts away from your need and onto your character. This is not a misunderstanding. It is a strategy. When someone cannot cross your boundary directly, they attack your perception of it. Gaslighting works because the human mind needs coherence. We want things to make sense. When your experience is constantly challenged, doubt creeps in. Research shows repeated invalidation weakens self-trust and increases reliance on external approval. Slowly you start second-guessing yourself. You replay conversations. You wonder if you explained it wrong. You look for the perfect words that will finally make them understand. But understanding is not the goal. Confusion is. Debate becomes the battlefield. They argue details, tone, timing, intent. You feel pulled into endless explanation. While you are busy defending yourself, the original boundary disappears. This is how control is regained without force. Exhaustion does the work. Notice how drained you feel after these conversations. That is not coincidence. Clarity energizes, confusion depletes. A healthy discussion leaves you feeling heard, even if there is disagreement. Manipulation leaves you questioning your own memory. When you feel foggy, apologetic, or ashamed for having needs, something is wrong. Here is the grounding truth. Boundaries do not require consensus. They do not need approval. They are not arguments. They are statements. When you try to convince someone that your limits are valid, you give them authority over your inner world. And that authority was never theirs to begin with. The shift happens when you simplify. Short sentences, calm tone, repetition without emotion. You do not defend. You do not persuade. You state and you stop. This feels unnatural at first because you were taught that love means explaining yourself. But self-respect means trusting yourself. When you stop engaging in circular debate, something powerful happens. The manipulation loses oxygen. Gaslighting needs participation to survive. When there is nothing to argue with, the illusion collapses. You begin to feel steady again, present, clear. Your body relaxes because it is no longer bracing for mental combat. This is where self-trust is rebuilt, not through grand declarations, but through small acts of certainty. Each time you refuse to argue your reality, you send a message inward. I believe myself. Each time you hold your boundary without over-explaining, your nervous system learns safety. You are no longer outsourcing your worth. There may be resistance, pushback, attempts to provoke a reaction. That does not mean you are failing. It means the old tactics are no longer working. Stay anchored. Silence can be an answer. Repetition can be strength. Calm can be unbreakable. As certainty replaces confusion, your energy returns. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head. You sleep better. You breathe deeper. You realize that peace was never found in being understood by the wrong person. It was found in understanding yourself. This is the moment many people begin to feel truly free. Not because everything outside them changes, but because something inside them locks into place. A quiet knowing, a solid center. From here on, your boundaries are no longer fragile ideas. They are facts. And facts do not need permission to exist. Even as clarity grows, a new challenge emerges. Boundaries that were once ignored or questioned now trigger rage. It is sudden, it is intense, and it is designed to break you. Your voice, your calm, your presence may feel powerless against the storm. Your body tightens, your chest rises and falls rapidly. Adrenaline floods through you. Every instinct screams to retreat, to appease, to shrink. This is exactly what the narcissist is counting on. Fear narrows your thinking. Panic hijacks decision-making. Your nervous system wants safety above all else, and they exploit it. Anger becomes a tool of intimidation. The louder the reaction, the greater the control. Even if your boundary is valid, even if your reasoning is clear, rage makes you doubt everything. You begin to associate limits with danger. The human mind, wired for survival, treats emotional explosions as threats to life itself. Compliance becomes the path of least resistance. You feel trapped, and you start questioning your right to exist on your own terms. Each burst chips away at confidence if left unchallenged. But this is where transformation begins. The power does not lie in avoiding confrontation. The power lies in preparation. Expect the storm, do not fear it. Breathe through the chaos, lower your voice, shorten your words, and refuse to justify yourself. Hold your ground without engaging in argument. Anger loses its grip when met with calm, steady presence. Your body will resist at first, insisting that fear is real, that survival depends on retreat. But the mind learns. Repetition rewires the system. Each time you face rage without surrendering, the fear dissolves a little more. Confidence grows quietly, invisibly, in the spaces where you stand firm. Distance is not weakness, it is strategy. You are allowed to protect your energy. You are allowed to step back without guilt. Physical space, emotional detachment, and mental boundaries are not betrayals of care. They are expressions of self-respect. Each moment you survive the anger, you reclaim a piece of your power. The nervous system recalibrates. What once felt like imminent danger now feels like a test you can pass over and over again. Strength replaces fear. Clarity replaces chaos. Authority over yourself grows, steady and unshakable. The human brain thrives on patterns. Every time you resist the pull of intimidation, you teach it that limits are safe, that asserting needs does not invite disaster. You retrain your instincts to associate boundaries with security, not threat. The more consistent you are, the faster the mind internalizes this truth. You stop reacting, you start choosing. You reclaim autonomy in a world that once tried to convince you it belonged elsewhere. This is the moment where resilience becomes real. It is quiet, steady, invisible to those who would manipulate you, but it is felt deeply in every fiber of your being. Breath slows, muscles relax, thoughts clear. Your self-respect becomes palpable, not theoretical. You understand finally that no explosion, no threat, no storm outside you can erase the foundation you are building inside. Strength is not loud. It does not need validation. It simply exists. With each repetition, each unshaken boundary, fear weakens. Anxiety no longer dictates behavior. Calm, controlled action replaces panic. You stop apologizing for protecting yourself. You stop negotiating your peace for temporary relief. And in that space, freedom begins to bloom. Not the freedom that comes from others, but the freedom born from knowing with absolute certainty that you are enough, that your needs matter, and that your boundaries are sacred and unbreakable. Even when boundaries are met with silence or rage, there is another more insidious tactic waiting quietly in the wings. It looks like respect, sounds like agreement, and feels almost harmless, but beneath it is a test. They say yes, they nod, they promise to honor your limits, and then slowly, imperceptibly, they push, probe, and cross those lines again. Small violations at first, almost unnoticeable, designed to measure your response. This is not carelessness. It is a calculated effort to see how firm you really are. Your vigilance is tested, your self-trust is challenged, and you are forced to confront the truth. Boundaries mean nothing if they are not enforced with action. Every tiny breach feels confusing. You rationalize, you excuse, you hope it was accidental. But each concession chips away at your clarity. The nervous system, trained to anticipate danger, remains tense. Hypervigilance becomes exhausting. You begin second-guessing yourself again, and this is exactly the point. They are testing whether the line you drew is flexible, negotiable, or sacred. The power lies in your response. If you allow these minor violations to pass without consequence, the boundary becomes a suggestion, not a rule. And rules are what protect your peace, your energy, and your self-respect. The antidote to this manipulation is alignment. Words alone are not enough. Boundaries require action. If a limit is crossed, there must be a response that reflects its importance. This is not punishment. It is teaching. It is showing without malice that your well-being is non-negotiable. The human brain does not learn boundaries through lectures or explanations alone. It learns through consistent reinforcement. Action communicates value in a way words cannot. Every time you follow through, you solidify the reality that you are worthy of respect, that your limits are not optional, and that your presence in your own life is sovereign. Consistency strengthens both your mind and your nervous system. Each time a breach occurs and you respond with calm, deliberate action, fear loosens its grip. Anxiety about enforcing your needs fades. The pattern of manipulation begins to unravel because it relies entirely on inconsistency and uncertainty. When you refuse to participate in the game of silent tests and hidden challenges, the system that once controlled you collapses. You become the authority of your internal world. Your boundaries cease to be battlegrounds. They become protective walls, shields that allow you to operate with clarity, focus, and dignity. Self-respect becomes tangible in this space. Every consequence you enforce, every moment you uphold your limits, teaches your body and mind that your worth is not negotiable. It rewires instinctual responses that once drove compliance, fear, and self-doubt. You begin to operate from a place of certainty, not reaction. Peace replaces tension. Strength replaces hesitation. Your energy flows where it belongs, toward growth, purpose, and fulfillment, Rather than being trapped in cycles of appeasement and manipulation, the true power of boundaries emerges when action and intention align. When your limits are respected through your presence, your responses, and your choices, you stop giving permission for intrusion, you stop tolerating what drains you, you stop compromising your peace for temporary approval. Healing accelerates, confidence deepens, and slowly the invisible chains that once bound you dissolve. Freedom is no longer a distant hope, it becomes a lived reality. Every step you take in protecting yourself reinforces the truth that your life is yours to shape, your energy is yours to guard, and your boundaries are the foundation of the strength you've been reclaiming all along. Even when boundaries are defended with calm and action, the narcissist may still attempt a final, quiet assault, the subtle claim that your needs are harming them. Suddenly, your limits are no longer about protecting your peace, they are evidence of your selfishness. They become the victim, and you are made to feel responsible for their discomfort. This tactic is designed to awaken the caretaker within you, the part of yourself that believes love is measured by sacrifice. Your heart contracts. You want to soothe, to fix, to make things right. Every instinct screams that keeping peace means surrendering yourself, and that is exactly what they are counting on. Psychology reveals why this works so effectively. Trauma bonding research shows that intermittent vulnerability from others strengthens attachment. When someone portrays suffering, your mind links their pain to your actions. Your sense of responsibility expands beyond what is reasonable. The more you bend to alleviate their discomfort, the stronger the pattern becomes. Boundaries, which are meant to protect, suddenly feel like weapons. Your inner voice, once confident, now questions whether self-care is cruelty. Anxiety creeps in, whispering that you must give up your limits to maintain connection, love, or safety. This is the moment where the strongest, most transformative truth must be embraced. You are not responsible for the emotions of another adult. Compassion is not surrender. Empathy does not require self-betrayal. When someone manipulates your care to enforce compliance, they are exploiting generosity, not demonstrating connection. You can feel for them, acknowledge their pain, and still maintain your boundaries. This balance is not only possible, it is necessary. Protecting yourself does not make you cruel, it makes you whole. The shift begins when you separate their feelings from your choices. You recognize that emotional manipulation is an attempt to reclaim control that was never theirs. You observe without panic, without guilt, without justification, and you respond with clarity. Your limits remain intact. You breathe, steady and unshaken. You allow empathy to coexist with firmness, and in that coexistence, power returns to you. Strength grows quietly, but undeniably in every decision that honors your own needs first. With repeated practice, your nervous system relearns safety. You discover that acknowledging someone's vulnerability does not compel you to violate your own. You learn that empathy, when rooted in self-respect, empowers rather than enslaves. Each time you resist the pull to sacrifice for guilt or fear, your confidence deepens. The subtle shame, the quiet tug to comply, loses its grip. Clarity replaces confusion. Authority replaces doubt. You no longer chase validation through self-abandonment. This stage marks a profound turning point. You stop apologizing for existing fully. You stop negotiating your peace for temporary approval. The power dynamic that once allowed someone else's emotions to dictate your actions dissolve. Your boundaries, once fragile, are now anchored in certainty, supported by both understanding and action. Freedom grows, not the freedom offered by another, but the freedom cultivated from unwavering self-respect. This is where true empowerment emerges. Every moment you honor your limits without compromise reinforces your autonomy. Every act of consistency, calm and firm presence teaches your body that boundaries are safe, that self-care is necessary, and that no one can undermine the value of your being without your consent. You are reclaiming your life, your energy, and your dignity. You are no longer defined by someone else's manipulation. You are defined by the strength, clarity, and courage you choose to embody each day. Even when boundaries are enforced with clarity, even when empathy is balanced with firmness, there is still one final weapon that tests the depth of your self-respect: deception disguised as compliance. They say the words you want to hear, they agree, they promise. And yet slowly, quietly, the lines are crossed again. A miscommitment, a subtle disregard, a hidden manipulation. These are not mistakes, they are deliberate probes, testing whether your limits are negotiable, whether your consistency can be broken. Your attention is caught, your mind races. You question yourself, was it intentional? Did I misjudge? The uncertainty is exhausting, and this is exactly the trap they rely upon. The human mind craves predictability. When patterns are inconsistent, anxiety surges. Each small violation triggers hypervigilance. Your thoughts become consumed with anticipation, replaying interactions, calculating responses. Your energy is siphoned away from growth, creativity, and joy, and into analysis and doubt. Manipulation thrives in uncertainty. But this is also the moment where transformation is forged. You learn that boundaries are not merely statements. commitments. They are promises to yourself first and foremost, and promises require action. Words alone do not protect you. Repetition without consequence is empty. Respect is communicated through consistent enforcement. If a boundary is crossed, there must be a response. This is not punishment. This is clarity. This is teaching the world and reminding yourself that your limits are sacred. Research shows that self-efficacy grows faster through action than insight alone. Each response, measured and deliberate, reinforces the truth that you are worthy of protection, that your energy matters, that your presence is not negotiable. The mind absorbs certainty faster than argument. Action speaks with authority that words alone cannot match. Every time you enforce a boundary, no matter how subtle the violation, your nervous system recalibrates. Fear loses its grip. Anxiety fades. The old reflex to apologize, to explain, to justify weakens. You begin to understand that standing firm is not aggressive. It is not cruel. It is self-respect. Calm repetition builds resilience. Every consequence you hold, every limit you maintain, strengthens the internal signal, I am safe, I am enough, my needs matter, my peace is non-negotiable. This alignment between intention and action is the foundation of unshakable confidence. The energy you reclaim is tangible. Tension leaves your body, focus sharpens, clarity floods your mind. You operate not from reaction, not from fear, but from choice. You realize that strength is not loud, it is consistent, it is deliberate, it is the quiet, unwavering presence that commands respect without demanding it. And in that space, freedom blossoms, freedom from doubt, freedom from compromise that drains the soul, freedom from the exhausting cycles of manipulation and uncertainty. Each time you uphold your limits without hesitation, you teach the world how to treat you, but more importantly, you teach yourself who you are. You are no longer a reflection of someone else's will. You are the architect of your own life, the guardian of your energy, and the source of your own power. Healing accelerates in this space. Confidence deepens, clarity becomes habitual. You are no longer negotiating your value or chasing validation. Every boundary you enforce becomes a brick in the foundation of your inner authority. Each act of consistency, calm and firm presence strengthens the unshakable truth. Your life, your energy, and your peace are yours to protect, and nothing outside you can change that unless you allow it.